Dear learners and listeners, welcome to NI Studio. Today we are going to discuss about the next topic, which is stress management and well-being. Part 1. Up till now you have studied about what is stress and what are the health problems which are related with stress. We have discussed in the last program that stress is by and large manageable if a scientific approach is followed for managing stress. It can be very well relieved. In today's program, we would be discussing about the different strategies which one can adapt for effective management of stress. Stress management training actually refers to a package of techniques that are used for helping the individuals cope with stress rather effectively. Wellness, on the other hand, refers to the good physical, psychological and social functioning of an individual. So, the objectives of today's program are that at the end of this program, you would be able to enumerate the relaxation procedures, you would be able to explain the various kinds of cognitive strategies for stress management, and also you would be able to know that how the support from the environment and the methods of enhancing the support system can help you relieve the stress. So, it was all about the objectives of the today's program. So, let us begin with the first objective, which is how do we know that what is altering bodily reactions and the relaxations and its effects on our body and mind. First of all, we must know what is relaxation. You might have undergone relaxation a lot of times. This is normal human response. When we become so much stressed, we would want to relax. The opposite of state of stress or tension is actually known as relaxation. Why do we relax? Because relaxation helps one person to think clearly about any problem or situation, because when you are under too much stress, as we have discussed in the last program, that too much stress hampers the performance. So, it would hamper you from, so it would stop you from thinking clearly about a problem. But on the other hand, if you are relaxing and try to think about a problem, you might get better solution to it. Just as stress can affect the individual at physiological, affective, cognitive and behavioral levels, as we discussed in the last program, relaxation can also influence the individual at all these levels. Among the various dimensions which an individual has in one's personality, bodily or physiological dimension is the one which responds first to stress. Therefore, to combat stress effectively, one will have to regulate the physiological changes that occur because of stress. So, in order to combat with those changes, we must know that what are the various techniques that we can use to deal with stress. Let us know about these techniques. Physical exercise, sports, yoga, etc. are found to be of immense value in preparing a person for relaxation. Apart from these well-known methods, there are some more techniques which are scientific and systematic in nature. The first technique which we are going to discuss here is deep muscle relaxation. So, what is deep muscle relaxation? It is like experience both tension and relaxation alternately in each and every group of muscles in the body. That is, when you are undergoing deep muscle relaxation, you have to experience both the tension as well as relaxation alternately in each and every muscle group in your body. The experience of relaxation and appreciation of difference between how it feels when you are under stress or tension and how it feels when you are relaxing, it immensely helps an individual in maximizing the feeling of calmness. It is also called progressive muscle relaxation because as the individual practices this technique, experience of relaxation increases. I have just given one link which you can use to have this deep muscle relaxation. I have taken this link from YouTube and you can find various deep muscle relaxation music and exercises as well as on net. The next technique which is other than those physical exercises is biofeedback. It is also very important technique. Biofeedback is actually based on the galvanic skin responses, which means that the feedback on what is happening in your brain, that is feedback on the brain waves and feedback on any other physiological parameter is given to the individual. Once the individual knows that what is happening internally, the individual is made to study the internal reactions to stress and relaxation. By giving the individual feedback whether the individual is in a state of stress or relaxation, the individual can be made to alter the reactions in favor of relaxation, which will have to be maintained as much as possible. Visual or auditory feedback is given in biofeedback technique. In the visual feedback, when the individual experiences stress, the red light will be on. Here I have shown that what happens actually in the biofeedback therapy. Once the feedback is given to the individual then will have to relax, and the state of relaxation will be indicated by green light. As I said, when the individual is under stress, in the visual feedback, red light is on. On the other hand, when the individual is under the state of relaxation, which is shown by the EEG or the brain waves, the relaxation will be indicated. So, when the individual is under the state of relaxation, the relaxation is indicated by the green light. Hence, the goal is always to keep the green light on when the individual undergoes treatment for the management of stress through biofeedback. Once the individual masters the art of relaxation through biofeedback, he or she can easily generalize the same state of relaxation to any other situation. Thus, one can gain perfect control over all the situations. In the case of auditory feedback, the beep sound will come whenever the individual is tense. So, what happens in the auditory feedback? Focus is actually given by the individual to successfully put off the beep sound, as the very sound may at times prevent the individual from relaxing. So, what happens that visual feedback is preferred more than the auditory one. So, what is there in biofeedback? It is actually that that in the biofeedback technique, the therapist is actually giving a feedback about what is going on internally in the individual, that the individual otherwise would never know, and when that feedback about the internal happenings is given to the individual by means of either red light or the green light or by means of the beep sound, the individual is then made to relax so that the red light can be turned off or the beep can be turned off. So, in this way individual learns that how to practice relaxation and control the stress provoking situations or the stress provoking reactions. This was all about the biofeedback technique. There are certain cognitive strategies also that can be used to practice relaxation. Let us know what are these cognitive strategies. Behind every action there is a thought or cognition. Healthy thoughts lead individuals to adapt behaviors, whereas unhealthy thoughts result in maladaptive behavior. By making those negative or unhealthy thoughts positive or healthy, both the experience and expression of stress can be minimized. Let us examine some of the techniques or the cognitive strategies which can be adopted for relaxation. So, we would be talking basically about the three cognitive strategies. First is the systematic desensitization, second is the thought stopping, and the last is the rational emotive behavior therapy. Sometimes what happens that the very thought of situation causes stress in the individual. Therefore, the person will have to get rid of the stress through imagination. So, the individuals are at first given training to imagine and relax at the thought level to cope with stress by not being that emotionally sensitive as he or she had been, and this is done in the systematic desensitization. All the situations in systematic desensitization are graded on the intensity of stress that each situation produces. These situations then are presented to the individual one by one who imagines this situation. For example, test anxiety situation. Grade the events producing the anxiety. For example, if you have a high test anxiety, so in systematic desensitization what would be done? The hierarchy of events would be made. So, the first thing is that the therapist might ask you to imagine the stress provoking situation and alternatively practice the relaxation techniques. Then as we have created the hierarchy of test anxiety, so what will come in the hierarchy of test anxiety? That is, first the very thought of test would create an anxiety in you. So, you have to combat with this first thought. Once you are able to relax yourself with this thought, then you have to move on to another step in the hierarchy, which can be, for example, actually going to the classroom where the test will be conducted. So, that is the second step in the hierarchy that we have created. Now, you have to imagine that how you would be able to practice relaxation if you are facing that you are actually going to the classroom setting where the test has to be conducted. And we might have different hierarchies or different situation in our hierarchy for test anxiety. So, this is done until you are relaxed till the last level in the hierarchy. So, as I discussed the test anxiety, the second step which I have already discussed is to practice a set of relaxation skills with you until the relaxation comes readily. For example, focusing awareness on breathing and doing full complete breaths. Alternate picturing the relaxing image for 30 seconds with scenes associated with test anxiety for 15 seconds, beginning with those scenes that trigger that least amount of anxiety. This is how systematic desensitization is done. Move on to the higher ranked scenes when the initial scenes, that is, for example, the very thought of test anxiety, which produces little or no anxiety, has been practiced. Use the relaxation skills to stay in a state in which relaxation dominates over the anxiety provoking situation. So, this was all about systematic desensitization, that we create a set of hierarchies, we practice relaxation and tension alternatively, and we try to relax ourselves. The second cognitive strategy is thought stopping. What is thought stopping? It is nothing but I say no, which means that whenever those thoughts that create stress comes to your mind, you just close your eyes and imagine no, which means that I say no to these thoughts. Just stop it. I am not going to think about all these thoughts that are creating stress. So, this is thought stopping. The another technique that we would be discussing, which is the cognitive technique only to practice relaxation, is rational emotive behavior therapy. It is known as REBT, and it is yet another cognitive technique which helps the individual to think rationally and realistically so that the positive emotion comes out of it. What happens in this REBT technique? We actually call it the ABC model, which means that, as I said earlier when we started discussing about cognitive strategies, that behind every action there is a thought. So, ABC is the antecedents, the behavior and the consequences, which means that what are the antecedent events that comes and provoke stress. So, what happens whenever an event comes? So, there is an internal belief which is attached to that event. For example, the event is test anxiety. So, that internal belief is that if I am not able to pass this test, what will happen? What others will say? So, this is an internal belief. So, if the unhealthy thoughts come to your mind, then what is the behavior? The behavior is that the person would maybe starts shivering, may have diarrhea, or maybe very nervous, because these are all the behaviors that are attached to the anxiety provoking situation. And what are the consequences? That there are no effective changes and the consequences are bad. But on the other hand, if the antecedent event is that there is test anxiety, so what is the internal belief which is attached to it? That is, so what, I am able, if there is an anxiety provoking situation, I would be able to deal with it. And even if I am failing in this particular test, this is not the end of road for my life. I can do well in other tests. So, what are the consequences that are attached to this positive thought is that you are able to manage your stress very well, and maybe you are able to deal with the test situation also very well. So, this is ABC model, and this model we use in the rational emotive behavior technique. Up till now, we have been discussing about the various strategies that help us to relax and relieve ourselves from stress. But there are certain other strategies, or the environment can also be supportive when we are under stress. So, how can we enhance the supportiveness of the environment? Let us discuss about this. Here in this picture, we have talked about the Rogers therapy. So, what is done in that? Whenever an individual is under stress, or whenever an individual has some problems, so what the therapist does, as the humanistic therapy says, that the individuals are given the best regards without any conditions, and the empathy is shown. The careful listening is always adopted by the therapist when the person comes for the counsel, and the therapist provides the useful, appreciating and adaptive behaviors for the individual to deal with the stress. That is, this is how this therapy, this particular therapy, which is humanistic therapy, is done, and the Rogers therapy is, or the Rogers therapy is done. That is, maybe you can't go to the psychologist, but if you have someone who is very close to you, who is very near and dear to you, if you are under stress and if you go to that individual and discuss your problem, and the other person who is listening listens to you carefully and tries to understand your situation and tries to help you out by providing you useful, appreciating, adaptive behavior. So, this individual who is very close to you can help you relieve with your stress. Such a positive environment will not only strengthen the personality makeup of the individual, but also make the individual learn certain new skills that are important for effective living. So, dear learners, this was all about today's program, in which we could discuss that how we can alter the situations that provoke stress. We also discussed that what are the different types of cognitive behavior therapies that are used to get relaxation, and in which we discussed the systematic desensitization, we talked about thought stopping, we talked about REBT. Also in this program, we discussed that how relaxation affects the individual at physiological, psychological and behavioral level. So this was all about today's program, and I hope you have understood the topic well. In the next program, we would be talking about that what are the different types of hobbies and recreation activities that are used for relaxation. Also, we would be discussing about time management and the role of yoga and physical exercises in relieving stress or stress management. I hope you have understood today's topic well. Thank you.